Now, here's the problem. If you've been using Claude Code for a bit, you've probably already hit this ceiling, even if you don't know about it. We call this the loop. You prompt, you wait, you read it, then you prompt it again. It works, but it does not scale well. The more complex your work gets, the more that back and forth actually becomes the thing that's slowing you down, because you're in every single step. You're doing it with Claude Code. Now, this isn't bad, but what I want to teach you is how to get out of this loop. You give it the task, it does the work, then you review it and decide what's next. That's actually a completely different way to use this thing. Let me start with the big picture. The big picture is you're not the employee, you're the CEO of the company. You set the direction, you make the decisions, you review stuff. You're not supposed to be doing every task yourself. And the file that we talked about in the last video, the Claude.md file, is basically the handbook that they read at the start of every session before they do anything. Your context files are the employee folder, everything about you, your business, your team, and the memory is the stuff that they've learned and carry between sessions. Every piece I'm going to show you fits somewhere inside of this. Keep that in mind. Now the question becomes, which model should I use? Because there's not just one Claude. There's a whole family of models, and they're really different in costs and capabilities. For example, we have the most basic and the cheapest model, Haiku 4.5. It's about 0.3 of a cent per task. This is your intern. It's fast, it's good at structured work, like reading files, running searches, and processing lists. You don't need a senior engineer or anything that has complex or critical thinking skills to scan 500 lines and pull out a single number. Any basic AI can do that. But the next model we have is Sonnet 5. This is slightly more expensive, but it is good for everyday tasks, like sending emails, giving briefs, like drafts, code, and any normal standard tasks. And a level above that would be Opus 4.8. And most recently, Claude has released Opus 5. This is about 7.5 cents per task, and this is more for your ambitious projects, your ambitious tasks, which require complex reasoning and anything where real judgment matters. Finally, we have Claude's most powerful model, the Fable 5. This is the most expensive one. This is what we would say a director level model. You bring this in for genuinely hard stuff, like problems and high-stake decisions and creative work, and most people just think, why not just use Fable 5 for everything? Well, it's expensive, and it might not necessarily give you the better output. Like, if you just have a very simple task of sending a message, Haiku 4.5 might actually give you a better output than Fable 5 would, and Fable 5 is just a lot more expensive. So, the main principles is that orchestrators stay smart, and workers go cheap. Well, what do I mean by this? Someone actually tested this, Haiku doing the execution, and it was actually 3 times cheaper than running everything on Opus. So, Opus. Okay, next we have the handbook, which is just short, or like kind of like a nickname for Claude.md, which is a file. So, what is Claude.md? Claude.md is the most important file in your setup. This one you must build first. And here is what it does. It's a markdown file at the very root of your project. And every time any agent runs any task, any new session, it reads this file first before doing anything else. So basically, this is your chance to tell every agent automatically, every time, without doing anything extra. You write it once, you keep it updated, and every session starts with an agent that already knows what's going on. So, final question remains is, well, what do I put in this file? In this file, you'll have your project, what you're building, and what stage you're at. Also, you'll have your tools, so Claude knows what's connected and will actually use them without you having to bring it up every session. And what's currently in progress and also how you want it to talk to you, your preferred formatting, your preferred tone, your preferred writing style. And in this file, you will also put in the skills you already have built. And there'll be also a decision log that will appear in the Claude.md file with the reasoning behind your calls. And that's it. You write it once, you keep it current, and every session already knows exactly what is going on. And without this file, every session starts from ground zero. Permissions. Permissions define what agents can do on their own. We classify these into 3 categories: deny, auto, and accept. Once your agent knows the project, you need to define what they can actually do on their own. By default, every time an agent wants to run a terminal command, it stops and asks you first. This is safe, but constantly you're getting interrupted and no automated work is getting done. This is no different from you building anything yourself. On the other end, if you turn it off fully into accept mode, all restrictions and agents run everything, no questions asked. This is fast, but one misread instruction can lead to many deletions or... Now going back to what I said earlier about the deny, the allow, and the accept, well, what are those things? These things are defined as zones. The deny list is stuff that is blocked completely, no exceptions, force pushing to main, dropping a database, deleting whole directories, and if running it by accident would wreck something, it belongs here. The allow list is stuff that is already cleared to just run, reading files, running tests. Fine, just do it. Everything else falls into auto mode, which does a quick check and either proceeds or asks depending how sketchy it looks and how possible that something goes wrong. Set your deny list first, before something breaks. Now, let's start talking about skills. What are skills? Skills are basically your SOPs for Claude. Anything you do more than a couple times, there's a right way to do it. A specific order, specific things to check, and a specific way to get a good output. Instead of explaining it every time or hoping Claude figures it out, you just write it down once as a skill. Give it a name and some way for Claude to know when to use it, like a trigger. Anytime you fire this trigger, the agent reads the document and runs exactly the process you have outlined in the document, the same way every single time. You can see that I have 3 skills outlined in the slides in front of you: /handoff, /audit, and /level up. These are the skills that I created myself to help streamline my workflows and help me have better productivity. /handoff is a skill meant to be run before you close every session or before you compact any session. It reads through everything in progress and writes a full briefing to a file. In this file, there's what got done, what's open, and what the next session needs to know, like what's there still to be done. You can come back in 2 weeks and you can pick up exactly where you left off. The next one I created was /audit. I run this once a week, which is usually on Fridays for me. It checks whether your context is still accurate, whether your integrations are working, and where the gaps are. And it creates the same structured report every single time. The last one is /level up. I run this one, I want to figure out what to automate next, and it's basically a structured interview that pulls out one specific opportunity and scopes it into something that I can actually ship. And once I figured out the right way to do something, I wrote it down and I never had to figure it out again. Throughout the whole video, I've been talking about integrations and MCP servers, but I never explained exactly what MCP servers actually were. These are basically bridges that connect one software to another, like Gmail to Claude, or Monday.com to Claude. By default, Claude Code is powerful, but it's basically working with what's on your computer, local files, terminal commands, and that's about it. But your actual work is in what you use, like your project management tools, your automation platforms, and your databases. If your agent can't reach those things, they're cut off from most of their usefulness and most of what actually matters. MCP, which is short for Model Context Protocol, is how you fix this. Each MCP server is a small program running in the background that gives Claude access to one specific tool. You can read tasks, create items, send messages, query data, or trigger stuff. Those are just some examples. Now here are just a few examples of the MCP servers that I use. So in your Claude Code, you'd go type /MCP, and then you would click this to pop up all your MCP servers. You see ClickUp has failed, but all of my other MCP servers have been connected, like Video, NAN, Blender, Higgsfield, School, and Context 7. These are all servers that are connected to separate softwares, and Claude can read, edit, and change any files depending on the software and what they allow Claude to be able to do. This way, I don't have to manually click buttons anymore. Claude just does it itself. Now, let's move on to sub-agents. If this is one thing that you guys learn from this entire video, I suggest that you heavily learn and expand your knowledge on sub-agents. Well, what are sub-agents? Most people run Claude Code one thing at a time. You wait for it to finish, and then you start the next thing. But your main session can actually spin up multiple Claude instances and have them all working at once. Picture this: your Claude Code that you're talking to right now, the model that you have it set on, is a manager. And when the manager says, okay, there are tasks that I don't want to do that could be done cheaper, he hires assistants, in this case sub-agents, to do these tasks for him a lot faster and a lot cheaper. So if you've got three things that don't depend on each other, instead of running them back to back, they all go at the same time, and you get 3 results in the time it takes to do the slowest one. Something that would take 10 minutes to do, using sub-agents actually takes more like 2. Here's the way that it works. Like I explained before, you have a main agent. This is your orchestrator, the person who manages all his employees. Each sub-agent gets one specific thing to do. Nothing else, only one thing to do. They don't see what each other does, they have no biases, they don't know what the final project is. Their only memory and the only knowledge is that I'm gonna do this one task that my boss had told me to do. Then, afterwards, they combine all their knowledge together, and then the main agent replies back to you. This is honestly where the biggest speed gains are once you have the system set up. But Claude Code has a context window with sessions, and it has a limit. There's one thing that everyone trips up eventually, which is, like I said before, that Claude has a context window. And what is a context window is basically how much it can hold in its head at once, which is around usually 200,000 tokens. Every file it reads, every message, every sub-agent result goes into this context window. In a long session with a lot going on, with a lot of complex thinking and decision making, you fill it up very quickly. And when you do, Claude starts getting fuzzy, and it starts forgetting things or making mistakes. It asks about stuff you already covered, and it loses track of decisions that you had made earlier. The fix for this is /compact, which Claude has to summarize the entire conversation down so that the context window clears. But the skill that I made, /handoff, helps Claude remember exactly what is still need to be done and exactly what had been done before. Handoff writes everything important into a file before the summary happens. What's in progress, what got decided, and what's next. After this, then you compact. If you compact first, without the handoff, all that detail just gets dropped, and it's gone. Same ideas as saving your work before you close the file. Do it in that order every single time. Now, this is how Claude gets smarter every session through persistent memory. Even if you run handoff and compact absolutely perfectly, the session still ends eventually, and the next one starts fresh without knowledge of any previous sessions. Memory is how you fix that in the long term. It's a folder of files Claude reads at the start of every single session, so stuff you've told it once just carries forwards automatically. There are a few types: stuff about you and how you like to work, feedback on what went wrong, so if Claude does something annoying, you log it once and it never does it again. Also, what's currently in progress that's too specific for the CLAUDE.md, but also way too important to lose. These things, like references, all live in the memory file. The reason that it matters is that it compounds, and Claude gets smarter and smarter every time, making less and less mistakes. A month in, it actually knows how you operate, and you stop having to re-explain everything to Claude. Now, just as a recap of the full system, to put the whole thing in one view, you are at the top, setting directions and reviewing output. Right below that is CLAUDE.md and the memory. Those are always running. Every agent reads both before doing anything. They're not optional features that you just turn on. They're just infrastructure. And in the middle, you've got skills, MCP, and model routing. The connections to the real tools and the connections to the things that actually matter. At the bottom is execution, sub-agents working in parallel. The reason this architecture matters is that it gives you somewhere to look when something's off. An agent is acting confused? Look at the CLAUDE.md file. Is it making the same mistakes over and over again? Update the memory file. Getting expensive? Route to different sub-agents. Is taking too long? Check if it could be done with the sub-agents as well. You can't reach a tool? MCP. Every problem has a layer, and once you know the layers, you can actually go fix the right thing instead of just rerunning the prompt and hoping that you get the output that you want. Now that you've seen every piece, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build your own AI operating system, your own executive assistant. To begin, download the starter pack from the description below. Open it up in VS Code. You can see that I have it open up already. It's got all the folder structures, the session files, and the handoff skills already downloaded for you, and the model routing rules. You set it up the way I run my own setup. The one thing that it doesn't have filled in is the CLAUDE.md and your context files, because those are your personal, your name, your goals, your tools, your priorities. That has to come from you. And the right way to do it isn't to fill it in a template. You let Claude ask you questions and write it from your answers. So let's start with phase 1, the interview. Open up setup.prompt.md, which you can see is right here. Copy this, open up your Claude Code, then paste this in. Claude will now generate you questions to build your own CLAUDE.md file. It's asking me who am I? What's my name? What should I call you day to day? What's my role? And what time zone are you in? This will help build your own CLAUDE.md file. Claude's going to start asking you questions, 2 or 3 at a time, as you can see. And when it has enough, it writes everything. CLAUDE.md and all 5 context files based on your actual answers. If you go back to the files, /handoff is already in the pack. And at the end of every session, you would run it. Claude writes the full state to handoff.md. The next time you open the project, you pick up exactly where you left off. That's the first habit. Everything else grows from there. When a workflow comes up 3 or more times, that's when you write a skill for it. So, in this session, I would write /handoff. As you can see, it's writing and reading what the conversation and then updating the handoff.md file. Now, if we go back into the handoff.md file, we see that it has everything answered for us. The status, the decisions, traps to avoid, relevant files, open items, and any next steps. The next part is to actually use this system. And the system gets better from obviously the more you use, the more Claude knows about you. Memory builds up every session. Every decision logged becomes the context the next session has, and every skill gets more and more sharper. Week 1 is pretty useful. By month 2, it knows how you work. And by month 6, it's handling stuff that used to take you an hour. Now, the last thing is the mindset shift. Two people, the same task, and they need something drafted. Person A opens up Claude, explains what they need, reads the output, and edits it. This takes maybe 15 minutes. Person B has a skill for this. Memory has their writing style and past work. A cheap sub-agent pulls all relevant context in parallel. Another one drafts from that. Person B reads it, makes a few tweaks. This takes maybe 4 minutes, and it already sounds like the person wrote it themselves. This is the same task, but it is completely different. And that difference comes down to 4 things. Instead of saying, hey, can you help me with this? It's, here's the brief, come back to me with the draft. You stop being inside the execution and you start reviewing the output. Instead of using the most expensive model for everything, you route it by what the task actually needs. And instead of re-explaining your whole situation every session, CLAUDE.md and memory handle it. Every minute you spend reorientating Claude is a sign that the system is not set up correctly. And instead of waiting for one thing to finish before starting the next, you run things that don't depend on each other at the same time. The thing underneath all 4 of these things is the exact same thing. Stop being a user and start building a builder. Start being a builder. A user has a capable tool that they've gotten good at. A builder has something that compounds over time. The more you use it, the more it can handle without more effort from you. And that's exactly what you're building. Everything in this video you can set up exactly today. The working version by tonight if you want. Start off with the setup prompt. Get CLAUDE.md and your context files done first. Everything else builds on top of that. The starter pack, like I described before, will be in the video description below.